My name is Naomi Barraza. I'm 18 and I identify myself as artistic and unique. I was 5 when I came to the United States, and my parents brought me mostly because, like every other story, they wanted a better life for us, for me and my brother. And my dad came here first, and my mom and I stayed back in Mexico until he was like stable enough to support us over here. And yeah, we just ultimately came here so that I could have better opportunities that I wouldn't be able to have in Mexico. When I was born, I don't know exactly like the story, but I had something wrong with my leg. It wasn't that big of a deal, but basically what happened is I acquired septic arthritis, which is arthritis that is caused by bacteria. And how that happened was that my nurse was giving me a shot, but she didn't wash her hands, so the bacteria entered my bloodstream through like a cut that I had, and it started eating away at my hip. So that pretty much damaged it to the point where it can't be repaired anymore. So throughout my lifetime, it's gonna continue to like deteriorate until I have to get a hip replacement. And coming here to the United States, I guess I was exposed more to, specialists that could help me more than they could back in Mexico, because we couldn't do anything about it in Mexico. Like, we couldn't sue the hospital or like really get any help. I'm not sure what it was called, but it's in California, and it's basically a hospital for children who I think don't have insurance or like can't afford medical attention, and it's free as long as you're a child. So I went there for, I think, 2 years to, because it was too expensive to go to other places here, just to see like the progress of my hip and what was happening. But one thing that they couldn't do for me was actually give me like hip replacement surgery, because kids don't usually need their hips replaced, so it's not like a procedure that the doctors could do. And now that I'm 18, I can't really go anymore, so I have to find another doctor or like another way to get a hip replacement, but it's too expensive for me to do it right now. So yeah, it was extremely difficult. Something that I still remember vividly is when I came, my first day of first grade, I remember just crying the entire day. Like, yeah, the entire day. The teachers tried to like comfort me, but I didn't understand, so I didn't know what they were telling me. I didn't really have a lot of friends the first few days just because I couldn't really communicate with them, and I was just very scared. And yeah, learning English was definitely an extensive process, but because of the fact that I came here so young, I pretty much learned like the concepts with everybody else. So it wasn't as hard as it would have been if I like had to learn English at 18. But yeah, it was definitely very hard, and it made enjoying school a struggle, just because I always had that fear of returning. But once I started learning it a lot more, it was definitely worth it. And it's really worth it now because I can speak 2 languages, so yeah. Deportation is obviously the biggest one, just because you never know what can happen. At the time I'm pretty sure it was in Arizona, where they made it acceptable for like the police to stop anybody who they thought was undocumented. I had that fear that like we would be stopped for some reason, or that like we would get like pulled over, and like my dad doesn't have a license, so like that's a bigger issue, because then there's like a reason for them to like look into his legal status. Yeah, it was definitely just deportation, to be like stripped away from everything you've known, even though I wasn't born here, because I've been here since I was 5 years old. So being sent back to Mexico would be like more of a struggle than coming here, just because I've lived here like for such a long time. There's definitely times where I'm jealous because everything is so much easier for him, and I always have like that struggle that he doesn't really have to deal with. And he always jokes about how I should have been like the one that was born here because I have like so much more potential. And that's not true, but yeah, there was never like a rivalry or anything, but it was definitely like difficult to know that like just because I wasn't born here, like I had to overcome more obstacles than he did, like with everything. Like healthcare is like very easily attainable for him. Like going to the doctor, like he doesn't really have to think about it. Whereas whenever I want to go to the doctor, it's definitely more if it's like an emergency, just because it's very expensive for me. But other than that, I mean, we kind of learn from each other, and there's not any sort of issues. Like he looks up to me because of everything that I've had to do that he's kind of been handed to him in a sense because he's a citizen. But I think it was my sophomore year of high school, and the process is it's more intense than I would have thought that it would be, mostly because of how much it costs. I think it costs a little bit over $400 to apply, and I think like to get your credentials and everything once you're accepted. But yeah, it was very extensive. I had to get fingerprinted like multiple times because I've done it twice. So each time I had to get fingerprinted. I had to get like felony records to see if like I've ever committed like a crime or yeah. So we had to do that, and I've never gotten into legal trouble. So it's not pointless, but it was like a hassle to like have to do that. And then my grades constantly had to be checked to ensure that I was doing well in school. And yeah, the process took a while to even like hear back to see if I was accepted or not. It took like a few months. So it's a lot of money, and it's also pretty time consuming. I think it's definitely worth it just because I hadn't realized it until high school that I wouldn't really be able to go to college because I was undocumented. And that's very disheartening just because I've always worked so hard in school to ensure that I would graduate like at the top of my class and that I would have good grades and be able to graduate high school because my parents didn't even make it to high school. So I wanted to make them proud. So to know that there was something like DACA that would allow me to work and pursue a career and go to college was something that I guess encouraged me more to just keep working hard in school, and like it makes it worth it. And no longer it's like I never thought of it as a waste of time, but before I thought like I went to school basically like for nothing because I won't be able to like pursue a career or anything. But with DACA, I'm very happy, and I think all the effort and the money is definitely worth it. I didn't encounter any issues really until it came to like filling out the FAFSA. Not just because I'm undocumented, but because my parents are undocumented. Like filling it out online, there's I guess a miscommunication with the fact that they do taxes, but they don't have social security numbers. So like I had to fill it out on paper and mail it in, and I've had to return it like multiple times because there were errors, and it had a lot to do with like me being undocumented. But then in terms of scholarships, I recently applied to the Dorrance scholarship, and there was a lot of struggle with that because they on the application they ask you if you're a citizen, and I'm not. But so they were unsure as to like if I could qualify because part of the scholarship is traveling abroad, and I can't leave the United States. But because of DACA, there are circumstances where if you want to leave the country for school-related reasons or family emergencies, you're able to. So I was still able to pursue that scholarship and still qualify. So that was exciting, but it's definitely not as easy as a lot of other students have with applying for scholarships, because I do encounter a lot of like obstacles when it comes to that. So I think in college I'll probably pursue either like international business because that's really interesting, and since I speak Spanish, I definitely have a little bit more of an advantage with that.